The Princes and the Press has just aired on the BBC.
It's so difficult to know for sure what happened between any two individuals, but when you're hearing it distilled through several other people, but I think it is probably right that William was unsure about Meghan when Harry started dating her and was cautioning his brother to take it easy and not jump too fast. And I think that is possibly, a root of the problems between them. But I think it developed into more of an argument over who takes priority. We're a big story, but we're not getting enough support, and we're not getting the right support.
So it's claimed royal family members, including the Queen, Prince Charles and Prince William, were annoyed that they were not granted the right to a first viewing of the documentary, nor a right to respond.
Times are changing. Let's go live now to London with Daily Mirror royal editor Russell Myers. Russ, tell us about this documentary. What was revealed? It's just aired there.
Good morning, guys. Quite a decent documentary, to be honest. First part of two parts from the BBC. Amal Rajan, who is quite a big media personality, he's a media editor of the BBC, spoke quite in depth about the palace relationships, not only with each other, but the relationships they have individually with members of the press. Of course, you've got Buckingham Palace that looks after the Queen, Clarence House, Charles and Camilla, and Kensington Palace that looks after William and Kate, and did, of course, look after William and Harry. So I think we had a sort of inner delving into the detail of how they work day to day, what their relationship is like with each other, and the relationship with the press. And more interestingly, I think, for most people, is about sort of potentially the how they go about their daily business. Do they brief against each other? Do they try and not tread on each other's toes? And whether Harry and Meghan thought they were sort of too big for the royal machine, and that's indeed why they ended up in sticks and setting up life on their own in California.
So the palace was concerned about this documentary, naturally, and threatened to boycott the BBC over it. Is this a sign that the royals' long-running relationship with the BBC is over, is done?
Well, interestingly enough, when you've got the establishment fighting the establishment, I think you've got a pretty tense situation on your hands. And I think that's possibly what has developed. I mean, there's talk of this tri-household agreement between the three households that I just mentioned, sort of going to war against the BBC. Now, my understanding is that they went to the corporation and said, we want an early copy of it, so we have a right to reply. The BBC said, no, journalistic practice goes against all of that. We'll tell you sort of a little bit of what it was about, and the three palaces released quite a spiky statement saying that it, essentially it was tittle tattle, and that they weren't going to sort of grace it with a proper response. What I do think has happened here is that the BBC and all the palaces are on quite a shaky ground, possibly more shaky than it has been ever. I mean, we had Prince William standing on the steps of Kensington Palace when all the Martin Bashir scandal was kicking off during the year, and I think that this is a further demonstration of a souring of relations between the two of them, to be honest.
So this doco looked at the press coverage surrounding the start of Harry and Meghan's relationship. You just touched on that. I think they touched on it in the documentary there that we saw. So how did that change throughout their time in the UK before they left the royal family, went to California?
Well, this was quite interesting, probably one of the central pillars of the first part of this. And it's sort of to take you back to a time where William and Kate weren't necessarily that popular. William was being described as the work-shy prince. Harry was sort of the joker of the pack. And then he got with this amazing, glamorous American woman who we were all obviously super interested in. And of course, the press coverage was absolutely glowing. The reams and reams of coverage all around the world was super favourable to them. However, when stories started leaking out into the press, and I think some of the journalists involved in the documentary said this, that almost immediately after the wedding there were stories about Meghan potentially being difficult with staff, that she was rubbing people up the wrong way, and that's when you saw the cracks between the relationship between the palaces and the press. And I think it set it up quite interestingly for the second part about whether the two brothers were actively briefing against each other. So I think we'll all be waiting and watching to see what was in the second part, because that is, you know, we've been talking about the bad blood between the brothers for so long now, whether, when you scratch the surface of this story, whether it all implodes before your eyes.
It's just all so sad, isn't it? In other royal news, Prince Charles and Camilla have recently, of course, returned from their 4-day tour of the Middle East, and the Prince has been urged to take on more duties to let the Queen rest. Is that the case?
Well, you know what? I mean, I've just come back from that tour in Jordan and Egypt, and it was a fantastic success. I think you saw that Charles and Camilla were having a lot of fun. Camilla looked very glam. She got a new hairdresser. She looked fantastic in some of the outfits she was wearing. And I think, you know, from speaking to them on the tour, they were saying there was a bit more snap in their celery, that they are willing to get out front and centre. Of course, the Queen has had to take a back seat of late. She's had a strained back. We know she's had some health problems. And, you know, it really does fall to the other members of the family to step up and be counted at this stage. So, yes, I do think we're going to see a bit more of Charles and Camilla. Of course, next year it's the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And they are the big guns, the senior members of the royal family that where people want to be seeing more of, and I think they've had a good time. So you know, I'm all for seeing a bit more of them, and I think the Queen deserves a bit of a rest now. Then, don't you?
Absolutely.
More snap in the celery is what I liked about that.
I suspect we will be speaking to you after the second part of that documentary too, Russell. So don't go too far away. Thank you.
No
Thanks, Russ.